Hello and welcome to our morning edition of Arirang News. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. U.S. President Donald Trump says the recent trade agreement with Seoul opens South Korea's market, adding that it'll boost American automobile exports. Former First Lady Kim Gun-hee is set to appear before a special counsel team for questioning over 16 allegations against her, marking the first time in South Korea's history that the wife of a former or current president is publicly appearing before an investigative agency as a suspect. A 24-hour-long filibuster launched by opposition party lawmakers came to an end on Tuesday afternoon, despite their efforts to delay the ruling party's push to pass a contentious media reform bill. U.S. President Donald Trump touted Washington's recent trade deal with Seoul, saying that the deal would open South Korea's market. Trump also announced that the United States will raise pharmaceutical tariffs significantly. Our Lee Seung-jae starts us off.
U.S. President Donald Trump on Tuesday touted the recent trade deal made between Washington and Seoul, saying that the agreement will significantly boost American automobile exports. In a CNBC interview, Trump said South Korea was a closed country, but the trade deal opened the market, referring it to as a tremendous business. The U.S. leader said the U.S. will be able to sell cars, trucks, and SUVs to South Korea. While South Korea has long imported American cars, the U.S. has repeatedly criticized Korea's automobile safety and environmental regulations, viewing them as non-tariff barriers. Meanwhile, during the same interview, Trump also said that his administration will raise levies on imported pharmaceuticals to 150% in a year. He added that the tariffs will then be raised to 250% later, as he unveiled a plan to announce more sector-specific tariffs within the next week or so. And Trump's push to reduce America's trade deficit through tariffs seems to be working, according to latest data. According to the Commerce Department's Bureau of Economic Analysis, the U.S. trade deficit narrowed significantly in June, while the trade gap with China fell to its lowest level in over 21 years. While the goods trade deficit dropped to 10.8%, reaching its lowest point since September 2023. However, beyond the trade figures, the U.S. economy is showing signs of strain as key measure of activity in the U.S. service sector stalled in July, with businesses citing rising costs and growing uncertainty due to the influx of new import taxes. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
A senior Pentagon official praised South Korea as a role model for its proactive role in defense and increased military spending. According to the Undersecretary of Defense for Policy, Elbridge Colby, on his social media post on Thursday, Seoul continues to be a role model in its willingness to take more of the lead in a strong defense against North Korea, as well as the spending on defense. He also stressed the importance of modernizing the South Korea-U.S. alliance to be able to meet emerging security challenges in the region. Colby vowed the United States will work closely with South Korea to ensure a strategically sustainable alliance that's ready to defend against shared threats. The comments follow a phone call between the defense chiefs of the two countries last week. On the local front, former First Lady Kim Gun-hee is being questioned today by a special counsel over multiple allegations against her. The wife of former President Yoon Suk-yeol was summoned to appear at the special counsel's office at 10 a.m. Allegations include involvement in a stock price manipulation case and election interference. Kim's representative has said she will fully cooperate and answer all questions. This marks the first time in South Korea's constitutional history that a current or former First Lady has appeared publicly as a suspect in an investigation. At the National Assembly, a filibuster by the opposition People Power Party came to a close, ending efforts to delay a contentious media reform bill pushed by the ruling Democratic Party. Our political correspondent Moon Hye-ryun has this report.
A 24-hour-long filibuster launched by the opposition People Power Party came to an end Tuesday afternoon after the ruling Democratic Party passed a motion to close debate. The PPP initiated the filibuster in an attempt to stall the passage of a contentious media reform bill, which the ruling party introduced at Monday's plenary session. Under National Assembly rules, a filibuster can be forcibly ended only after 24 hours have passed and at least 3/5 of sitting lawmakers, 180 members, vote in favour of doing so. The threshold was met and the DP immediately followed up by passing the Media Reform Bill, where 178 lawmakers voted in favour and 2 against of the 180 votes cast. The PPP did not participate in the vote. The Media Reform Bill is one of 3 controversial legislative proposals aimed at overhauling governance structures at South Korea's public broadcasters. The DP claims the reform would reduce political influence over broadcaster leadership, while the PPP warns it could undermine press freedom.
To boost press freedom and independence, the bill makes CEO appointments more transparent and democratic. The 3 broadcasting control bills can be seen as a prelude to the dictatorship of the Lee Jae-myung administration. Before long, they will take control of the general programming cable channels in the same way, even though those are not included for now.
The remaining 4 bills on the agenda, including 2 other media reform bills, the so-called Yellow Envelope Bill aimed at protecting unionized workers, and a revision of the Commercial Act, will carry over into the August session, with a plenary vote likely scheduled for later in the month. The PPP has vowed to continue its resistance by launching filibusters against each of the remaining bills. Despite continued resistance, the ruling party is pressing ahead, signaling more legislative standoffs in the weeks to come. 문혜련, Arirang News.
With a summit between the leaders of South Korea and the United States expected to take place in Washington this month, it's set to be a major test for President Lee's foreign policy. For more on this, we're joined by Professor Andrew Millard, Assistant Professor of International Relations at Changwon National University. Professor Millard, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
So, security issues are expected to top the agenda when Presidents Lee Jae-myung and Donald Trump meet, right? So, the 2 countries' defense chiefs recently talked about a modernized alliance in their recent phone call. What does this mean for the 2 countries' security cooperation?
Right. So, yes, we've just finished the trade deal. That all seems to be going ahead quite nicely, which means security issues is the main issue left on the table. Now, when they talk about this modernized alliance, what we have to remember is South Korea and the US have had this security, this mutual defense treaty for more than 70 years. But when this treaty was signed back in 1953, obviously South Korea was very weak back then. Over the past 70 years, South Korea has developed economically, technologically, and also industrially. And so basically what the US is saying is that treaty we had 70 years ago, it doesn't fit with the modern industrial economy of South Korea. And basically they're going to look at readdressing the balance of the security relationship between America and Korea. And they're really going to look and say, South Korea these days has not only the capability, but also the capacity to defend itself. And therefore, maybe the US doesn't need to play such a major role in security in South Korea. So basically, it's not an end to the security relationship in any way. It just means readdressing the balance and potentially maybe shifting some of the wartime operational control back to South Korea.
I see. And another major security issue is the burden sharing issue for U.S. forces Korea. As Trump has repeatedly said, South Korea needs to pay more for defense costs. What do you think South Korea must secure at a minimum in the negotiations, given Trump's unpredictability?
Right. So again, when the US say, oh, South Korea needs to be paying more for security, this is not just specific to South Korea. This is a general global sort of strategy that the Trump administration is pushing. So if we look at Europe also, they're also pushing the Europeans to pay more. So we need to look at the whole wide picture and sort of recognize that. But as we just said, South Korea, it now is capable and it is spending much more on defense. So what South Korea really needs to do is show America that it is committed to supporting the US. It is willing to spend more on its defense, but in return, it also needs to try to get America to maintain as strong a US force in South Korea as possible. So after 70 years, if Donald Trump can be a little bit unpredictable, if he suddenly says, oh, South Korea is strong enough, it has the capability, it has the capacity, we don't need to be there, and suddenly reduces the US forces significantly, then that could create a lot of problems for South Korea. So the minimal that South Korea needs is to have a reduced force, but on the minimal side and on a fairly slow phase out, if at all.
Right, and there's also been a report that the two sides may discuss South Korea's role in case of a Chinese attack on Taiwan. Could the Taiwan issue also be on the agenda when they do meet?
Oh, without doubt. So we're not only looking at South Korea. Again, what the US administration is looking at is they're looking at the wider Indo-Pacific region, and we're looking at the various different security agreements that are in place. So we have the US, Japan, South Korea trilateral agreement, but that's the only one that South Korea is involved in. There's other separate ones. So there's the Quad, so the Quadrilateral Security Dialogue, then there's AUKUS. South Korea is not a part of this. So the US is looking at South Korea and say, are they really committed to not only defense of the Korean Peninsula, but are they going to support the US in Taiwan or in other areas of the region if there is some sort of conflict?
See, and on North Korean issue, North Korea has said, the personal relationship between Kim Jong-un and Donald Trump are not bad, but it's not going to give up its nuclear weapons. What's your take on a possible meeting between Kim Jong-un and Trump? Do you think they'll be able to meet again?
So firstly, I agree, nuclear weapons, they will not be eliminated. In terms of a possible meeting, I think right now the chances have increased, because in South Korea, we do now have the democratic government in office, and usually they're more pro-North Korea. So that's a very positive change. And also Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un in the past have had a good relationship. However, the big difference now between Donald Trump's first term in office is that the war in Ukraine has started. And with the war in Ukraine, North Korea has very much aligned itself with Russia. And so it's going to have to really look at this relationship with Russia. Is a meeting with Donald Trump possibly going to change or alter that relationship with Russia? How would Vladimir Putin react to some sort of meeting? So there are a few more differences in the current system.
I see a lot of things to consider there. We'll have to see how that goes. All right, Professor Miller, thank you so much for your insight today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
South Korea is facing a summer of extremes with scorching heat waves followed by intense downpours. Experts say there's a reason behind this. Our Park Hyo-bin has the details.
This July was one of the hottest months on record in South Korea, but it was also one of the most devastating in terms of rainfall. According to a Korea Meteorological Administration report on Tuesday, the country's average temperature last month was 27.1 degrees Celsius, the second highest since precise records began in 1973. There were 14.5 days categorized as heat wave days with temperatures exceeding 33 degrees, the third highest on record. The extreme heat triggered a surge in heat-related illnesses. The emergency authorities responded to over 2,400 emergency calls related to heat stroke and other conditions in July, up more than 140% from the same time last year. Heavy rain has also battered parts of the country. Mid-July saw rainfall double the seasonal average, with over 240 millimeters falling nationwide, the fourth heaviest on record for that period. This extreme mix of heat and rain forced the government to activate both its heatwave and heavy rain central disaster and safety countermeasure headquarters for the second year in a row. Since the task force was established in 2019, this is only the second time both systems have run simultaneously. Experts say there's a reason behind these extreme weather patterns.
This summer, a strong North Pacific high brought in hot, humid air, while another high from Tibet expanded overhead, trapping heat over the Korean peninsula. At the same time, cold air from the north clashed with this heat, creating intense rain clouds and heavy downpours lately.
The impact is already being felt. Last Sunday, over 140 millimeters of rain fell in an hour in Muanggun County, Jeollanam-do Province, leaving one person dead and causing widespread flooding. And on Tuesday, most of the country still remains under heat advisories or warnings. Experts recommend staying hydrated and limiting outdoor activity during peak daytime heat.
To stay safe during heat waves, drink plenty of water regularly and avoid going outside during the hottest hours. It's better to go out in the early morning or evening.
With up to 120 millimeters of rain forecast for central regions on Wednesday, authorities are urging residents to stay alert and take precautions. Park Hyo-bin, Arirang News.
South Korean football icon HeungMin departed from Incheon on Tuesday evening and headed to Los Angeles. Reports already are stating that Son will break the Major League Soccer transfer fee record with move to LAFC. Our Kim Bo-kyung reports.
After bidding farewell to Premier League side Tottenham Hotspur at the weekend, South Korean football icon HeungMin departed for Los Angeles on Tuesday evening. He signed autographs for hundreds of fans who had gathered to get a glimpse of him at Incheon International Airport before boarding an LA-bound flight. Several reports have said that Son is expected to join Major League Soccer team Los Angeles FC with only the final details of the transfer, completing paperwork and doing a medical check remaining. Son could officially announce his contract with LAFC as early as Wednesday local time. When it comes to his transfer fee, both BBC and ESPN said Son was moving for a fee of around 26 million US dollars, which is around 36 billion Korean won. If the number is correct, the figure would break the MLS record 22 million US dollars Atlanta United spent to have Emmanuel Latelat for Middlesbrough. This would make his move to LAFC the highest transfer fee in MLS history. Son's new chapter in the U.S. comes after he ended a decade-long journey with Tottenham with a farewell game, Tottenham's preseason match against Newcastle United at Seoul World Cup Stadium on Sunday. One of the toughest decisions of my football career. This is how he described his feelings as he announced that he is no longer going to be a Premier League player. Since joining the Tottenham in 2015, Son is fifth on the all-time scoring list for the team with 173 goals in all competitions. He won the Premier League Golden Boot as the league's joint top scorer in the 2021-2022 season and captained the team to the UEFA Europa League title in May, which was the club's first major trophy in 17 years. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
Good morning. I'm Walter Lee filling in for Choi Ji-hee, and this is The World Now. The UN Secretary Council assembled on Tuesday for a meeting called by Israel to address the situation of hostages still held in Gaza following Hamas's release of videos emaciated Israel hostages. At the meeting, United Nations Assistant Secretary General for Europe, Central Asia and Americas, Miroslav Yanka, condemned footage of the visibly malnourished hostages Inviata David and Rom Breslavsky, who were taken hostage by Hamas on October 7, 2023. He also emphasized that hostage-taking is a violation of international law and constitutes a war crime. Yanka addressed reports that Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is seeking to expand military operations in Gaza, calling the plan deeply alarming and a risk to the lives of remaining hostages. Ilay David, the brother of hostage Ivayata David, also spoke at the meeting via video link-up and described the deteriorating condition of his sibling. A U.S. Coast Guard investigative board has found that the Titan submersible that imploded in 2023 had an inadequate design. OceanGate's Titan submersible was on tourist expedition to the wreckage of the Titanic when it imploded, killing 5 people on board. That's including OceanGate CEO Stockton Rush. According to the 300-page report released on Tuesday after a 2-year investigation, the implosion was deemed preventable. The U.S. Coast Guard, Marine Board and investigation emphasized the need for stronger oversight and clearer regulatory pathways for operators pursuing innovative designs outside current standards. Wildfires swept through parts of Spain on Tuesday as the country endured its second heat wave of the summer, with temperatures soaring over to 40 degrees Celsius in several regions. In Spain's Galicia region, firefighters battled a wildfire near the residential areas in the town of Ponticio, and the nearby village of Colme Aldea was evacuated in southern Spain. A blaze in the town of Tarifa spread rapidly through nearby mountains, forcing the evacuation of hotels and campsites in the area. Efforts to contain both wildfires were hindered by strong winds. And heavy metal legend Ozzy Osbourne died of a heart attack, coronary artery disease and Parkinson's disease. That's according to his death certificate, which was obtained by the New York Times on Tuesday. The former Black Sabbath frontman died on July 22nd at the age of 76 and was best known for his unique heavy metal voice, outrageous acts and absurd MTV series The Osbournes. The Osbournes' funeral was held at the city of Birmingham, England on July 30th.
We're forecasting more significant rain across the country today. Until tomorrow, parts of capital area and Gangwon-do could see over 150 millimeters. Jeollado might get up to 120, and the rest of the capital area might see 3,200 millimeters of showers during the day. A heavy rain advisory has been issued in parts of Gyeonggi-do and Gangwon-do provinces and could spread to more central regions. Meanwhile, rain will give us a break from the intense heat, with heat alerts being lifted in central parts of Korea. So morning lows and afternoon highs will be similar here in the capital, topping out at 28 degrees, Daejeon at 30, but Daegu topping out at 33 degrees Celsius as the rain arrives in the mid-afternoon. After the rain passes, the heat will return, but mornings and evenings could get a bit more bearable, with Thursday marking Ipchu, the start of autumn. However, Jeju is forecast to see rain from Friday and into early next week.
That's all we have for this morning. Arirang News will be back at 5 p.m. Korea time. Thanks for watching.